From K2 News, this is breaking news.
A pleasant spring morning in Portland shattered in a moment.
I heard a scream. I stood up and I noticed a car on the sidewalk.
Seconds later, that car slammed into 3 women.
They told us that there was a hit-and-run crash with a report that several people were injured.
The suspect is spotted in Northeast Portland and handcuffed.
They didn't drag him or anything, but they got him out forcefully.
Tonight, one big question: why? And you are looking at the scene of that terrible hit-and-run crash that sent 3 women to the hospital. The crash happened just before 10 o'clock this morning at Southwest 6th and Hall, just by the Portland State campus, when a blue Mazda SUV slammed into a crowd of pedestrians.
And one of the women is in critical condition. One is in serious. The third woman does not want her condition released. A person of interest was found across the river on Northeast 16th and Gleason and was taken into custody peacefully. And at this time, we still don't know if the crash was an accident or intentional.
And good evening. Thank you for being with us, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn.
And I'm Deborah Knapp. We're live in Southwest Portland, right in front of the scene. It is right behind us near the Portland State University campus. TriMet is affected by this. Traffic is affected. Max is certainly affected.
We do have live full team coverage for you this evening. I can tell you this. We're going to start with K2's Keaton Thomas, who's been on the scene all day long since this happened at about 10:04 this morning. Keaton, what's the very latest from where you are?
Well, the very latest is going to be, this traffic situation. Southwest 6 been closed down all morning. It will likely be closed down through rush hour, as you said, also affecting TriMet. Here's a look at the scene, though, as it has been since about 10:04 this morning when it all happened. I want to draw your attention down here, though, to some of these orange markings on the ground and the evidence stickers. Speaking with a couple officers on scene, they say they tracked some of the oil that they believe might have been from that suspected vehicle, and you can see they tracked it all the way down the block here. Now, as you kind of said, all this happened just after 10 o'clock this morning. Witnesses say the driver of that blue SUV jumped the curb, ran into 3 women. Witnesses that I talked to here this morning described a terrifying scene immediately after, and then some gruesome injuries. We now know that all those 3 women were taken to OHSU. As you said, one of them is in critical condition as of this afternoon. A witness snapped this photo of the driver on the sidewalk just before leaving the scene. Later, they located the vehicle at Southeast 16th and Gleason. Police say they seized the car and took a person of interest into custody.
At this time, we are not looking for additional suspects or vehicles. Based on information we have at this time, we do not believe that there is a danger to the community in relation to this investigation.
I should clarify, it was Northeast Gleason and 16. Police aren't releasing the person of interest's name at this point, though. Investigators still need to interview him. Police say that we may learn that a little later on today, though, depending on how their investigation goes. Another big question is the motive. Why did this person do this? Right now, we still don't know. A lot of folks here on scene have been speculating, is this intentional? Was it an accident? Was it an act of terrorism? Police again say they are looking into several factors here this afternoon. For now, we are live in Southwest Portland. I'm Keaton Thomas, K2 News.
Okay, Keaton, thank you. Now, that man was taken into custody just before 1 o'clock in Northeast Portland. As he mentioned, this happened at Northeast 16th and Gleason. As for a motive, that is unknown at this point. Investigators are still looking into what they believe the suspects or the person of interest motivation was behind this.
Let's go now to K2's Reed Andrews, who's at that scene now in Northeast Portland. And when we went to that scene an hour or so ago, we saw a small crowd had started to gather as folks heard on social media that a person of interest had been taken into custody. What's the latest from where you are now, Reed?
Well, Stephen, what I can tell you is that things have died down here considerably. A lot of the police presence has dwindled away. We still do have a handful of police officers waiting on a search warrant so that they can get into that blue Mazda. You can see the heavy damage right there. It is the car believed to be involved in the crash on the sidewalk near PSU this morning. The front end of it significantly damaged. And until officers are able to get a search warrant, detectives aren't able to go through the car to look for any evidence. Now, we know it was someone in the area that recognized the car from the description police gave out, and they were the ones that called 911. That led officers in this part of Northeast Portland, sandwiched between I-84 and Benson High School, to just kind of descend on the area and make sure that the man wasn't able to leave. One man, Dustin Boomer, lives nearby, and coincidentally his wife works at PSU, and he was going to head out to the Southwest campus to see her, and that's when he walked out his door, found the heavy police presence in his area, officers all over the neighborhood, and then he saw that damaged blue SUV parked near the stop sign.
Approached the vehicle pretty sternly, He wouldn't get out of his vehicle. The window was down, so they opened the door and got him out of his vehicle. They didn't drag him or anything, but they got him out forcefully.
Now, the suspect's name still hasn't been released by Portland police. Here's what we know about him. He was at a treatment facility in southeast Portland, but left on May 1st. Staff there tells me that he had been at the treatment facility for months, and that in their opinion, they don't think that he was motivated by terrorism to drive onto the sidewalk, like police say happened along Southwest 6th Avenue this morning, but that the man had, quote, other issues. Because of patient privacy laws, they weren't able to elaborate on what any of those issues could have been. Again, police continue to just wait it out before they can get that search warrant and then look for any clues in the form of evidence that may have been left behind in the SUV. We're live in Northeast Portland. Reed Andrews, Deb and Steve, back to you.
Okay, Reed, thank you so much. Right now, you're taking a live look at Chapter 2 above the scene. This is right near the Portland State University campus, Southwest 6th and Montgomery, where this all took place just around 10 a.m. this morning. And those 3 women who were hit by the car on the sidewalk were all transferred to OHSU. One of those women is in critical condition.
Let's go there now, in fact, to K2's Joe Douglas, OHSU Medical Center. Joe, whole lot of interest right now in how those women are doing. What's the very latest on the victims?
Well, Steve, that woman who's in critical condition is said to have life-threatening injuries, another woman in serious condition, and a third woman. That third woman does not want to share her condition according to the hospital, but earlier we were told that she was in fair condition. Authorities have not yet released the identities of these victims, but I've learned some really shocking and dramatic details about the crash itself from a PSU freshman who was there when it happened. He says he heard a scream, heard the car speed up, saw it hit these women, and one of them flew 10 to 15 feet. He also describes hearing her cries and the cries of people next to her. We are going to hear that sound coming up at 4:30 with him. It's some really dramatic and terrifying stuff. All 3 of these women were taken here to Oregon Health Sciences University Medical Center in Southwest Portland. We are going to stay on top of the condition of these victims and bring you the latest information as soon as we get it. Reporting live, Joe Douglas, K2 News.
Okay, Joe, thank you. And as you can imagine, on a Friday before a Memorial Day holiday weekend, it was a very active, busy campus environment. A lot of students going to and from class about 10 o'clock. Lachey Wesley was able to talk to several witnesses on the scene.
Yeah, she did. In fact, in this social media age, and most everybody's got a camera now and a phone, they can take pictures, and a lot of people describe the same car. Is that right, Lachey?
Yeah, all of them described seeing that same blue SUV come onto the sidewalk and hit the 3 women. Now, we spoke to at least 4 witnesses who described the exact same thing. Now, where we're standing is at the south end of the crash scene, about exactly 2 blocks away from where it happened. Now, there were certainly a lot of people around who saw what happened. Police say the driver drove onto the east side of the sidewalk between Harrison and Montgomery. Lauren Peoples was in the area. She saw 2 of the women get hit. Now, here's how she described it.
I saw a blue car hit these women, and it looked like he kept going, so he almost dragged them, or maybe one a little bit down the street, or maybe she, as she fell, she got dragged a little bit. He just kept going.
She says one of the women looked like they were unconscious. People says she saw the first one taken away by ambulance. She says the other 2 were covered in scrapes and had bloody noses. Now, right when this happened, People says she knew others were calling 911, so she actually ran out into the street to try and take a picture of that vehicle driving away. Now, she says she wanted to make sure she captured the exact make and model as well as that driver's plate number. Now, she says she wasn't able to get a picture in time. People describes to us seeing a bright blue vehicle similar to the one that eventually police found. Now, she does tell us that all of those women look to be in their early 20s. She says all of them were carrying bags and did look to be students. We're live in Southwest Portland. Lachey Wesley, K2 News.
All right, Lachey, thank you very much. And a whole lot of folks with thoughts and prayers for those victims tonight. No question, throughout this entire community and state, no doubt. Also coming from some local leaders. Check this out. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler tweeted this: "My thoughts are with those injured in this morning's hit and run. Thank you to the first responders and to those investigating. I've spoken with Police Chief Outlaw, Fire Chief Myers, and leadership from PSU and OHSU. Both Oregon Senators Ron Wyden and Jeff Merkley have offered their support as well."
And you know, when this happened just after 10 o'clock, as we mentioned, a very busy time on and near campus, and the first indication that something was wrong for some people was hearing screams coming from the street. Nate Bynum did talk to other witnesses, and he joins us live from Southwest Portland. Nate?
Yeah, Deb, and we're here at Southwest 5th and Harrison, just steps away from those flashing police lights and police tape where that investigation is ongoing. And as you can see, students, pedestrians, people starting to go on about their day in the midst of it all. That certainly wasn't the case earlier when crowds were still stunned by what had happened. Now, we spoke to one Portland State student who was right nearby when this incident happened. Kara Hudman says similar scenes in the news recently are jarring enough, but it's hard to imagine something like this happening so close to home.
I'm just really upset. Like, I don't understand why this stuff happens all the time, and it's just really hard to see. Like, just to have this, like, kind of danger happening too in a place that's supposed to be a safe spot is just really upsetting.
And again, right back here at Southwest 5th and Harrison, no sign of much change as this investigation is ongoing. These police officers doing their work. They're within the police tape and the crime scene, certainly going to be out here for a long time, it appears, as people begin to go back about their day as we approach the evening commute. We will be out here on the scene throughout the evening bringing you the latest. But for now, Steve and Deb, throw it back to you.
We are continuing our coverage now of that hit-and-run crash that sent 3 women to the hospital today near the PSU campus. One of those women is in critical condition. One is in serious condition. The other does not want her condition to be known. The person of interest was found across the river on Northeast 16th and Gleason and was taken into custody peacefully. At this time, we still don't know if the crash was an accident or intentional. Let's head back down to Southwest Portland and the campus, where Steve Dunn and Deborah Knapp have more of our team coverage. Hi, guys.
Yeah, hi, Lincoln. We are definitely down here near the crash site, Southwest 6th and Hall. And for those familiar with this campus, or maybe those who aren't, if you can look back here, if we get a shot of that, where this fountain is right there, and there's a Cafe Yum right smack between those two, is where on the sidewalk these 3 women were hit by that car.
And we have live continuing team coverage of this incident that happened earlier today, just after 10 o'clock. We want to begin with K2's Keaton Thomas, who is also live at the scene. And Keaton, they do have someone in custody, but police are still looking for evidence.
Yeah, that's right. They're looking for any extra witnesses out there, anyone with some cell phone video. They're asking any businesses that might be even further away from this immediate area, away from even where the scene is over here, to review their security video, because they say that any extra information and any extra piece of video will help them kind of piece together what happened this morning at about 10 o'clock. That's when police say the driver of a blue Mazda SUV hopped the curb and ran into 3 women on the sidewalk. All 3 of them were taken to the hospital. One of them is in critical condition here this afternoon. Another is in serious condition, and the condition of the third isn't being released as requested by the family members. Now, we don't know their names yet or if they are PSU students. Thanks to a community member, police found the suspected vehicle in southeast Portland later on in the day. They took a person of interest into custody there. Now, Chief Outlaw wasn't at the press conference today that we had latest from the police bureau, but a spokesperson for the bureau read a statement on her behalf.
Chief Outlaw stated, "I recognize the sensitivity and concerns that surround high-profile incidents such as this. Our first thoughts are with the victims and their families. Investigators are working diligently to collect the facts and maintain the integrity of this case."
Police also reiterated multiple times today that they do not believe that there is any danger to the public relating to this incident here, and we are still waiting for more information about that person of interest that took into custody, including his identity. Police say, depending on how their investigation goes the rest of the day, we could learn that a little later on. I should also note that Southwest 6 here, where we're standing, is currently still closed and will likely be closed through the rest of rush hour. Now we're live in Southwest Portland. I'm Keaton Thomas, K2 News.
Yeah, so much investigating to do, Keaton. Thank you for that tonight. We're going to go back to Northeast 16th and Gleason now, where K2's Reed Andrews is standing by, and that is where that person of interest was taken into custody earlier today. And Reed, what led police to that spot?
Well, they got a 911 call from someone who saw the heavily damaged SUV parked right here on Gleason Street. They saw that car, then went into their home and thought that something was a bit suspicious, then saw a news report about how police were looking for a car very similar to that, and that's when they called 911. Police then surrounded the area to make sure that the suspect couldn't get away. Now, police are saying that it was a routine arrest, but witnesses tell K2 News that the window was left open on the driver's side and that officers had to actually open the front door and forcefully pull the suspect out of the car. So the police won't comment on whether the suspect was known to them or if they believe that he had any mental health issues that they were aware of. Witnesses say that he appeared to be disoriented, but police will not elaborate on any of that.
They got him out, and he walked willingly to the car. They put him in the cop car, and it seemed he had his head down. He seemed like he knew what he did, and he knew what he did wrong, kind of a thing. And you can see the front of the car. It's not like he didn't know what he didn't hit. You know, if you're hitting people, you need to stop.
Now, the driver's name hasn't been released, and we don't know if he has a criminal record or any mental health issues. But as recently as 4 weeks ago, he'd been staying at a Southeast Portland treatment center for a few months at least. Because of patient privacy laws, the people who work there can't comment on what, if any, treatment he sought there. But they say that they don't believe that this morning's crash was, quote, terrorism related. Now, here you can see Northeast 16th Avenue. This is a popular thoroughfare for people heading from, say, the central east side of Southeast Portland and trying to get on 84 eastbound. That right now is blocked off as police continue to have this area cornered right here. You can see that that SUV is still sitting right there. I'm going to get back in frame and tell you that Portland police are continuing to have this area secure. They don't want any tampering with that car as it is considered part of the crime scene and could provide any valuable evidence inside. They won't be able, though, to search that car until a judge signs off on a search warrant. We're live Northeast Portland. Reed Andrews, K2 News.
Reed, thank you. And moments after that horrific crash happened, the hit and run, the driver left the scene. Witnesses there were able to call 911. Medics arrived within minutes to deliver aid to those three women. Those three women were then taken to OHSU. Joe Douglas is live at OHSU with more. Joe?
Deb, a witness offered a terrifying account about what happened to me. We'll hear that in a moment here. As we've heard, one of the victims is in critical condition with life-threatening injuries. According to the latest information, another is in serious condition, and the third woman does not want her medical condition shared at this time. Authorities have not yet released the identities of these three women, but we've learned some vivid, disturbing details about the aftermath of the crash from a Portland State University freshman named Aiden Downs. He says he saw it all happen after his philosophy class this morning.
I heard a scream. I heard the car accelerate, and I saw it swerve onto the sidewalk and hit. I saw it hit three women. One woman in particular flew 10, 15 feet to the side on the sidewalk. Afterwards, I was in shock and crossed the street. I wanted to know if they were alive, if they were okay.
Aiden tells me he heard sirens, then crossed the street and saw one woman next to a fountain crying and screaming, "Oh my God." He says a woman next to her was not moving, but he could tell she was breathing and people were helping her. Another woman closest to the Max stop nearby was not moving at all, he says, and he heard a man next to her saying, "You're doing great. The ambulance is almost here." All three women were taken here to OHSU. They're going to stay on top of their conditions and bring you the latest information as soon as we get it. Reporting live, Joe Douglas, K2 News.
All right, Joe, thank you. Just imagine the bedlam that unfolded when this happened shortly after 10 o'clock this morning. A whole lot of people around here going to class at 10 o'clock this morning, more than 20,000 students on this campus, and a lot of those folks saw what happened.
Absolutely. There were a lot of witnesses. K2's Lachey Wesley was able to talk to some of them. What did they have to say, Lachey?
Well, several of those witnesses tell us that they could have easily been hurt themselves. Now, of course, the driver was traveling on Southwest 6th here and turned onto the east part of the sidewalk. That's where the three women were hit. Now, we spoke to several witnesses who saw what happened. Christopher Bond saw it all. He was down the road just a bit outside a Starbucks. Now, Bond told us that he saw two of the women get hit. He said they were walking up a ramp that's in that area. Now, he says if the car would have kept going, other people would have been hit too. Now, Bond said from what he saw, the women were pretty scraped up.
One of the girls had a tire mark or a bumper mark on her lower left side.
All of those women were taken to the hospital right afterwards. Now, after the women were hit, he said the driver drove off. He said that driver even stopped at red lights. We know another witness tried to take a picture of the vehicle, but she told us that she just couldn't grab it in time. Now, Bond said he thought that the driver drove away simply like nothing happened. Now, several witnesses that we spoke to told us that they certainly felt like it was on purpose. We're live in Southwest Portland. Lachey Wesley, K2 News.
Thank you, Lachey. In just the past 30 minutes, we received a new statement from Portland State University President Ramat Qureshi, thanking first responders and offering condolences to victims and their families. This is what it reads in part. All of us are shocked and saddened by the serious incident. There is much we do not know yet, but we are working closely with the Portland Police and Portland Fire Bureaus to assist in their investigation. Safety is our #1 concern at PSU.
It's certainly a tough day for everybody. People at PSU, the people involved in this entire community. Much more to talk about coming up on K2 News at 5, but for now, we're going to toss it back to the studio, Lincoln Graves. Lincoln.
A mass casualty incident in downtown Portland.
I saw cops show up and police, and there was one person unconscious on the ground and another person yelling out.
A speeding SUV driving up onto the sidewalk.
The car just kept on coming and he hit two girls, and it looks like he kind of ran them over.
As investigators scoured the aftermath, officers tracked the suspect car down in northeast Portland.
You can see the front of the car. It's not like he didn't know what he didn't hit. You know, if you're hitting people, you need to stop.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn along with Deb Knapp. We are not far from the crash scene. In fact, it is right behind us. And I can tell you this, we just heard from Portland State University. They do confirm that some of their employees and the students here helped come to the aid of the crash victims.
And those victims, 3 women walking on the east side of Southwest 6th Avenue right there. They were injured, one critically, after a man plowed into them on the sidewalk.
We do have live team coverage for you tonight. We're going to go straight out to K2's Keaton Thomas, who's been covering the scene for us all day long. And Keaton, do we know at this point how long that vehicle was on the sidewalk?
Well, you know, police haven't released the specifics on that right now. The investigation is ongoing. I mean, Southwest 6, I should say, has been closed here for going on 7 hours. I want to point your attention right over here to these orange markings on the ground. Police think that there's marks, what they think is oil from that vehicle that might have hit people further down there by about a block. Again, those 3 people were 3 women hit right near 6th and Montgomery, right on the sidewalk on the east side by that blue Mazda SUV. Speaking with folks here on scene, they said it was terrifying, it was tragic, it harkens back to other pedestrian collisions from around the world. Now, those 3 women were taken to OHSU. One still in critical condition tonight, one is in serious condition, and family requested the 3rd victim's condition not be released. Police have not released their names either. We also don't know right now if they're students at Portland State University, but a witness told me on scene here that they all appeared to be very young. Now, the big question, though, right now is why did this happen? And that's something that police are still trying to figure out.
You know, we are aware of incidents throughout the world that have occurred, and we know from our previous press conference that there was questions about the motive for this incident. We're still investigating that.
Police found the vehicle in question in northeast Portland. They took a person of interest into custody there and will be interviewing him. We do not know his identity yet, but depending on how that investigation goes from here, we may learn that as the day goes on. That, according to Portland Police. Police say that they do not believe that there is any more danger to the public at this point relating here to this incident. And they are also looking for any extra video from some cell phones or from some witnesses, also saying that businesses further away should be reviewing their security footage because they say extra information helps them be able to recreate what happened here this morning. For now, we're live in Southwest Portland. I'm Keaton Thomas, K2 News.
Okay, Keaton, thank you. And again, just before 1 o'clock, that is when they took that person of interest into custody in Northeast Portland. It happened at Northeast 16th and Gleason. We do have video of when that happened, when that person was taken out of the blue Mazda and then walked to the back of a police car.
Let's go out to K2's Reed Andrews, who's been on the scene there at 16th and Gleason for quite some time. And Reed, a lot of folks want to know, who is this guy? What really happened here? What are we learning about him?
Well, we do know that he was at a treatment facility in Southeast Portland. He'd been there as recently as May 1st. That was his last day there, and he told the folks that he was going to a hotel. He had been at that treatment facility in Southeast near Holgate for about a few months. I'm told they wouldn't elaborate on exactly what treatment he had seen, but the folks at that treatment facility tell me that they don't believe what happened in Southwest Portland today was motivated by, quote, terrorism. Now, for about 2.5 hours, Portland police were on that lookout for that blue Mazda SUV and the person of interest that was driving the car. It was located on Northeast Gleason and 16th Avenue over the Willamette River and about 3 miles away from the crash scene near PSU. Witnesses say that the driver had his window down when police surrounded his car and that he wouldn't come out at first. Someone that we spoke with in the neighborhood noticed the suspicious car, and police are thankful for that tip.
Noted the damage and then returned home and saw on the news or social media that a vehicle like this or this vehicle was potentially involved, and that was the reason to call 911. So.
Now, witnesses say that the man came out looking disoriented. Police won't comment on his mental state at the time of the arrest. He is being questioned by officers, less of them than there were about an hour and a half ago or so, but they are still here making sure that that is a protected car because inside of it could be any evidence that would give them a better idea of what may have led up to that crash at the PSU campus. But they won't be able to go in there until a judge signs off on the search warrant. We're live on a Friday evening, Northeast Portland. Reed Andrews, K2 News.
Still so much to learn, Reed Andrews. Thank you for that tonight. A whole lot of people in this area when this happened shortly after 10 o'clock this morning. A lot of witnesses, and one witness tells us that right after the crash, they heard sirens right away, and paramedics then rushed these 3 victims to OHSU Medical Center.
And K2's Joe Douglas is live at OHSU. Joe, one of the women is injured in critical injuries.
And Deb, police say her injuries are life-threatening. Another woman here is in serious condition, and a third woman does not want to reveal her medical condition, according to OHSU. The hospital has contacted family members of the victims, but authorities have not yet released their identities. An eyewitness, PSU freshman Aiden Downs, tells me this morning he heard a scream, saw the SUV speed up, swerve onto the sidewalk, and hit the women. He says one of them flew 10 to 15 feet.
When I crossed the street, I saw that the woman next to the fountain was crying, and she was screaming, and she kept saying, "Oh my God." The woman next to her was not moving. But I could tell she was breathing. It was pretty clear she was, and people were with her, and they were working with her. The woman that was closest to the Max stop, she wasn't moving at all. And the man next to her saying, "You're doing great. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great." And he kept saying, "The ambulance is almost here."
All 3 women were taken here to OHSU. We are staying on top of how they're doing, and we'll bring you the latest information as soon as we get it. Reporting live, Joe Douglas, K2 News.
Joe, thank you. And although police have not released a motive in what may have made this man plow into those 3 women, some witnesses on the scene believe that it was done on purpose.
K2's Lachey Wesley is also part of our coverage team tonight. She joins us in Southwest Portland. And Lachey, why do these folks think this was on purpose?
Well, they tell me it's exactly how that driver was traveling on Southwest 6th and then turned onto that sidewalk and then turned back onto the street. They said like nothing happened. Now, we spoke to at least 4 eyewitnesses who saw what happened. Now, several of them actually are PSU students. One is Ann Clifford. She says she could have very easily been hit. She was on her way to class when it happened. Now, Clifford said it was terrifying. She said the driver looked like they were going almost 50 miles per hour. Now, she says they continued to drive onto the sidewalk before going back onto the road. Here's how she describes it.
I saw the blur of the car out in my peripheral vision, and then I saw the girls in the air and then on the ground, and then I saw the car speed off.
Clifford told me there is no doubt in her mind that she thinks that this was intentional. I asked her if she thought the driver had targeted those 3 women specifically, but she told me that she just felt like they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, she says one of the women looked like they were unconscious. She said that people were just trying to make sure that they were okay and make sure that they didn't move anywhere. She did call 911 and she did speak with police about what she saw. Now, she got a pretty good description of that vehicle. She was able to describe the make and model and tells us that it matches very similar to the car that was found in Northeast Portland today. Live in Southwest Portland tonight, Lachey Wesley, K2 News.
All right, Lachey, thank you very much. As you can well imagine, a lot of folks reacting to this throughout the community. That includes the officials here at Portland State University. I want to read you a statement late this afternoon from PSU President Rahmat Qureshi. He said, quote, "I want to express my condolences to those who were injured this morning on campus. All of us were shocked and saddened by this serious incident. I know I speak for all at PSU when I say that our hearts are with the victims and their families."
And of course, political leaders in our city also making their voices heard. Earlier today, Mayor Ted Wheeler tweeted his thoughts are with those injured in this morning's hit and run. He also thanked first responders and said he is in contact with the police chief, fire chief, and leaders at PSU and OHSU.
And we certainly know the investigation has just begun, so detectives still want to know more about the 2005 Mazda Tribute linked to this incident. As a license plate 491JHT, they'd also like to see cell phone video or perhaps surveillance video of the incident. If you have it, if you know anything at all, please call Portland Police.
And this happened at a very busy time of the day on a Friday morning, just around 10 o'clock this morning, as students were heading to class or out of class, of course, the day before Memorial Day holiday weekend. A lot of witnesses here on Southwest 6th Avenue who saw what happened. K2's Nate Bynum is live also in Southwest Portland with more on what witnesses say they saw.
Yeah, Deb, we are right here at Southwest 5th and Morrison, just blocks away from where all of this happened. And I have to say, at this time, it looks like people are heeding advice from law enforcement and avoiding this area. As you see the police tape, and there are officers and detectives still down there conducting their work, and not very many pedestrians and vehicles for 5 o'clock here on a holiday weekend Friday. It certainly wasn't the case earlier. We saw stunned crowds standing around right after this incident happened. Now, we spoke to a Portland State student who was right nearby when this incident happened. Kara Hudman says recent incidents like this in the news elsewhere already had her feeling uneasy at times around campus.
Just really scary because I feel like this stuff keeps happening, and I'm already I get really nervous when I'm in the library all the time. It's probably paranoia, but it's just constant. And then I was right there. I didn't watch it happen, but I was so close.
Now, Kara is so shaken up. Kara was so shaken up, she told us she was considering taking online classes in the future. Again, we are here at Southwest 5th and Harrison. The detective scene still very much active here. We expect that to continue now for several hours into the evening. We'll be on the scene to keep you abreast of the latest developments. In Southwest Portland, Nate Bynum, K2 News.
Nate, thank you. And so many witnesses were around when this happened, and this can be a traumatic scene to have witnessed. So Multnomah County Mental Health Call Center is available for people who may feel they need to talk with somebody after today's hit and run. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Here's the phone number to call, 503-988-4888, or you can call toll free at 800-716-9769.
We can only imagine how frightening this was for the folks who were here here when this happened at 10 o'clock this morning. In fact, a couple of minutes ago, I talked to a member of the women's lacrosse team here at Portland State, and she said immediately they started texting each other, "Are you okay? You okay?" because they all live right nearby. We have much more to talk about coming up later on in this program. In the meantime, I want to send it back to Lincoln Graves in the studio for more news. Lincoln.
All right, Steve and Deb, thank you so much.
This is K2 News at 6 on your side.
Now at 6, a peaceful morning at Portland State takes a terrifying turn.
I don't understand why this stuff happens all the time, and it's just really hard to see. Like,
An SUV jumps the curb and slams into 3 women.
I know when it got to me, it was at least going 40, 45.
Those victims rush to the hospital while police hunt for the driver who hit them.
They did encounter the driver in the vehicle, seated inside, gave him commands to put his hands up, and he was arrested without incident.
Well, the tape is still up almost 8 hours after 3 people were hit by a car on the sidewalk at PSU. This is a live look from Chopper 2 right now. K2 News was the first to bring you this story after it happened, and we were also there as a person of interest was taken into custody in Northeast Portland. There are still a lot of questions tonight. Who is he? Did he do it on purpose? And is everyone involved going to be okay? Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lincoln Graves. The conditions of those victims has not changed. One is in critical condition and one is in serious. I am here in the studio to bring you any new information we get into the newsroom. Steve and Deb, though, are in the field tonight at the scene of this incident at PSU. Guys, what's the latest out there?
Hey, Lincoln, I can tell you much quieter now than it was 8 hours ago when it was total bedlam back here and filled with fear as 3 women walking on that sidewalk were mowed down by a car that jumped the curb. Those women taken immediately to OHSU.
We have several reporters covering very different angles of this story. We want to begin in Northeast Portland with Reed Andrews. This is where the scene ended 3 hours after those pedestrians were hit when police came in on the suspect car, and the man of interest in this case is about 2.5 miles away from the initial scene near PSU. Reed?
Well, Deb, that's right. And just within the last 5 minutes, we can tell you that the car that was allegedly used in this crash was towed from the scene here. It was parked right on Gleason Street there and then towed right down Northeast 16th Street or Northeast 16th Avenue onto Sandy Boulevard. The car was parked there for more than 5 hours, and we don't know exactly how long the man had been sitting in the car before police got here. We're about 3 miles from the scene at PSU, and someone noticed the heavily damaged front end of the car and called 911. That led to an arrest, and then they had to process the scene and had to wait for a judge to sign off on a search warrant, and that's what led them just to cover up the car and lead it to be towed from here just within the last 5 minutes. Police won't confirm that the suspect is known to them or say anything over whether they believe that he has a history of mental illness. Now, police, again, we're waiting for a search warrant for them to be able to go through the car, and what's so valuable about that is that then there may be little clues of evidence that may provide them an indication of what the motivation was behind that vehicular violence on 6th Avenue in Southwest Portland. That happening just around 10 this morning. Now, just before 1 this afternoon, police had the car surrounded, and that's what led neighbors to come outside and figure out what all the commotion was.
Approached the vehicle pretty sternly. He wouldn't get out of his vehicle. The window was down, so they opened the door and got him out of his vehicle. They didn't drag him or anything, but they got him out forcefully.
Now, witnesses say that the person of interest looked a bit odd when coming out of the car, but that after being placed in the back of the police car, he appeared to realize and acknowledge that he was in trouble. The driver was staying at a treatment center in Southeast Portland. He had been there for a few months. His last day there, though, according to the staff that I talked to this afternoon, was on May 1st. He told them that he was staying in a hotel. They hadn't seen him since. They wouldn't elaborate on what, if any, treatment he had received at the center because of patient privacy laws, but they do tell me that they don't believe from their knowledge that anything that went down in Southwest Portland today was motivated by, quote, terrorism. Again, they don't think that that was the cause. We're live in Northeast Portland. Reed Andrews, K2 News.
All right, Reed, thank you very much. This event obviously affected a whole lot of people, particularly the more than 20,000 students here at Portland State University. It also affected a whole lot of streets in this area for good reason. We want to go now to K2's Keaton Thomas standing by. He's been on the scene all day long, and I understand, Keaton, just moments ago they opened up the road.
Yeah, just under 8 hours after all of this actually happened, we got Southwest 6th Avenue back open here. You've got a MAX train, looks like, finally getting through here for the first time since this morning. I should note that while the street is open, the west side of the sidewalk over there, where you see a gentleman packing up what looks like evidence, that side of the sidewalk is still closed. Again, as this investigation does continue here 8 hours later. Now, police say 3 women were injured when a blue Mazda SUV hit them on the east side of 6th Avenue on the Portland State University campus. Spoke with several witnesses today who described the scene as horrific. One woman told me that she went to help those 3 victims. She described some gruesome injuries that I'm not going to repeat right now. We know very little, though, about those victims. We don't know if they're students here at PSU, but witnesses say they looked very young. I spoke with a representative today from the student government today who called all of this heartbreaking.
Well, this harkens back to problems that we have dealt with routinely, and that really is heartbreaking. This is not something that should be typical. This is not something that we should be having to contend with.
Police located a person of interest on the east side earlier today. As you heard Reed, they have him in custody now, interviewing him. Police say they don't believe that there's a threat to the public here at this point, but we still have a lot of questions. Most importantly is why. Folks on scene can only speculate right now. They wonder if it's intentional, accidental, terrorism. Police say they're still investigating, looking into several different factors. We also don't have the name of the person of interest at this time, and I should clarify, it is the east side of the sidewalk here on Southwest 6th that is still closed. Investigators also asking for more information from the public here at this point. They're looking for some cell phone video, possibly witness information, or even information coming from other businesses that may even be a few blocks away, because that will help them piece all of this together. But now we're live in Southwest Portland. I'm Keaton Thomas, K2 News.
Keaton, thank you. And speaking of cell phone video, a lot of people did have their phones out. This was a very busy time of the morning here at PSU. A lot of students going to and from class. Happened about 10 o'clock this morning. We have video from Matt Ritzy of the scene immediately after that car plowed into those 3 women. You see an emergency vehicle there, as well as people tending to those 3 women who had just been hit by the car.
Certainly, as you can well imagine, tremendous outpouring of support for the 3 victims who are now at OHSU Medical Center. We want to go right out there now and get the very latest from K2's Joe Douglas. Joe, what have you learned?
Well, Steve, a witness tells me one of those women flew 10 to 15 feet after being hit. Police say one of the victims is still in critical condition with life-threatening injuries. Another here at OHSU is in serious condition, and a third woman told authorities she did not want to share her medical condition publicly. Authorities have not yet released the identities of those 3 women. Aiden Downs, a PSU freshman, tells me he saw the hit-and-run crash happen this morning after his philosophy class. He says one of the women was not moving after being hit, but he could tell she was breathing. Another woman closest to a MAX stop nearby wasn't moving at all, he says, and a man next to her kept saying, "You're doing great. The ambulance is almost here."
I was absolutely traumatized. I was in shock. It was numbing. I just hope they don't die. I'm worried that for their well-being, that, you know, I hope they'll be okay. I absolutely lost it.
Did you call 911?
I did not, because the police were already there. After it happened, I mean, after I crossed the street, I could already hear sirens.
All 3 women were taken here to OHSU. We are staying on top of how they're doing, and we'll bring you the latest information as soon as we get it. Reporting live, Joe Douglas, K2 News.
Joe, thank you. And where we are right here on the PSU campus is a very popular spot. Right over here is the Recreation Center. Of course, there's a cafe, ice cream shop, so there were a lot of people around when it happened. K2's Lachey Wesley has more reaction from witnesses on what they saw and what they heard. Lachey?
Well, they say it was terrifying and felt very surreal. Now, this all happened in a matter of just a few moments. Now, take a look. This is the side of the sidewalk where the 3 women were hit. You can see there are a pair of shoes on the ground where police tell us that it happened. Still, this side of the street, this sidewalk is blocked off and plenty of police still in the area. Now, some witnesses describe hearing the car speed up. Others told us it looked like the driver was going up to 50 miles per hour. Some people who saw it say the women were thrown up into the air. One woman says she saw one of the women being drugged by the car. Now, we've spoken to a lot of witnesses who saw it happen. This area is very, very busy at 10 a.m.
The more I think about it, going over it in my mind, it did look deliberate.
It was 100% on purpose.
He just stopped at every light, like nothing was wrong.
Christopher Bond, who you just heard from, was at Starbucks when this happened. He says he was very close and could have easily been hurt himself. Bond said the women were pretty badly hurt. They had scrapes and cuts all over their bodies. Now, another witness told us there were a lot of people who were actually able to call 911 for help right away. She was focused actually on getting a description of that vehicle. She was trying to take a picture of it, but wasn't able to. But she told us that she could describe the make and model. Now, several people in the area described a very similar car to us when we were first on scene. Now, all of those descriptions match the car that was eventually found in northeast Portland. Live in southwest Portland tonight, Lachey Wesley, K2 News.
Lachey, thank you very much. Of course, we've had several updates in Portland Police today saying this investigation is just getting started. It could be days before we really learn what happened here, but they still want to know more about the 2005 Mazda Tribute linked to this incident. Here's the license plate, 491JHT. They'd also like to see some cell phone video, surveillance video, if anybody has it, of what happened around here. If you know anything, call Portland Police.
What happened today certainly affected so many people here on this campus and in this community. We have more coming up at 6:30, more live reports from reporters and more information from the scene. In the meantime, let's get more of the day's news and toss it back to Lincoln Graves in the K2 studios. Lincoln?
Okay, Steve and Deb, thank you so much. Investigators hope surveillance video will help them piece together what happened moments before a car hopped a curb and crashed into 3 people at PSU this morning. They're also talking with the man believed to be behind the wheel. As you know, he was arrested without incident a couple hours later in northeast Portland. Well, even though this happened this morning at about 10, there are still a lot of questions. Steve Dunn and Deborah Knapp are at PSU tonight in hopes of getting some of those questions answered. Hi, guys.
Yeah, no doubt, so many questions out there. We can tell you, Lincoln, there's been a flurry of activity since the last time we talked to you. For example, Max is running again here around us, and also they've opened up all the streets in the area. This, of course, about 8.5 hours after 3 women were hit by a car while walking down the sidewalk.
It certainly is much quieter now on the PSU campus. When it happened, it was very busy. We have a lot of reporters covering various angles of this team coverage. Keaton Thomas is one of the reporters who's been on the scene all afternoon. Keaton joins us live from Southwest Portland with the latest. Keaton?
Yeah, well, we're at Southwest 6 in Montgomery. We just moved here within the last 30 minutes or so. This is where most of that police activity was this afternoon, just across the street as Southwest 6 is open here. That's where those 3 women were hit by the car. And judging by what witnesses had said and judging by what we've seen in terms of images and videos, it was that car coming down the other side of the sidewalk, the east side of Southwest 6 there, and going all the way down, possibly even to the end over at the next intersection at Southwest 6th and Mill, judging by some markings on the ground over there the police had marked earlier today. Now, all this happened just after 10 o'clock this morning. Witnesses say the driver of that blue Mazda SUV jumped the curb, ran into 3 women. Witnesses that I spoke with on scene described it as terrifying. Immediately after, they described some gruesome injuries. We now know that all 3 women were taken over to OHSU. We know one of them's in critical condition this afternoon. Witness snapped this photo, though, of the driver leaving the scene. Later, police located the vehicle at Southwest 16th and Gleason. Police say they seized the car and took a person of interest into custody. Students on campus here, though, described this as tragic and horrifying. many of the witnesses describe what happened, and some may even know the victims, and some may have escaped.
So we were like 2 minutes ahead of where I would normally be, and I was like right there, and then they went right up there, and I was like, geez, I'm like, that could have been me. So that's shaking, like sobering, very sobering.
That could have been me. Definitely an interesting moment there for that young woman. Now, police aren't releasing the name of the person of interest at this point. Investigators are interviewing him. They say that we may learn a little later on today more about him if and when that person of interest is booked into jail. Chief Outlaw said in a statement today that they're going to release information when it becomes available and when it is appropriate to do so. Officers say that they don't believe that there is any danger to the public at this point. We also heard, again, that was from the police chief. Another big question, though, is motive. And right now we still don't know. A lot of folks here on scene, including the witnesses, have been speculating. Is it intentional? Is it terrorism? Was it an accident? And again, right now police say they are investigating. They are going over several different factors. For now, we're live in Southwest Portland. I'm Keaton Thomas, K2 News.
Yeah, this could take days to figure that out. Keaton, thank you very much. We want to switch right over to Northeast 16th and Gleason now, and that's where K2's Reed Andrews is standing by, and that is also where earlier today police took that person of interest into custody. That car is now gone, though, right, Reed?
Well, that's correct. The last police officer has left the scene. Police had the area cornered right here on Northeast 16th Avenue and Gleason Street. Both those streets now open after they were closed for more than 5 hours. And police being able to tow that car from here, they are now going to be able to search it and find if there's any evidence that could tell them what the motive was behind all of this. Now, again, this car was towed just within the last 30 minutes, and we shot video of it as it was being towed down 16th Avenue on its way to Sandy Boulevard. Now, how all of this came about and how police were able to learn that it was in this quiet Northeast Portland neighborhood is because someone noticed a smashed front end of the SUV, and that clicked in their mind that it may be the car from the crash at the PSU campus. They called 911, and then police just descended on the area. The driver was seated in the front, window down, and witnesses say that he refused to immediately surrender to police. They actually had to pull him out, and one witness says that it was pretty forceful.
But they got him out, and he walked willingly to the car. They put him in the cop car, and it seemed he had his head down. He seemed like he knew what he did, and he knew what he did wrong, kind of a thing. And you can see the front of the car. It's not like he didn't know what he didn't hit. You know, if you're hitting people, you need to stop.
Now, one big question in all of this, and witnesses from the scene at PSU saw that man drive up 6th Avenue along the Transit Mall, and according to witnesses, just sort of try to blend in with all of it. Well, he did end up actually here at Northeast 16th and Gleason Street. That is 3 miles away, but there's about a 2.5-hour period for which he wasn't accounted for, so we don't know exactly how long he may have just been sitting in the front of his car here on Gleason Street, or if he took another path and seemingly went unnoticed during that 2.5 hours for it. We're live in Northeast Portland. Reed Andrews, K2 News.
Reed, thank you. Now, the situation happened just about 10 o'clock this morning, about 100 yards away from where we're standing there on 6th Avenue. Those 3 women who were hit were taken to OHSU, one of them in critical condition. In fact, police say her injuries are indeed life-threatening. Another woman is in serious condition, and a 3rd woman asked to keep her medical condition private, according to the hospital. Authorities have not yet released the identities of the victims, but we have learned some vivid and disturbing details about the aftermath of the crash from an eyewitness.
I heard a scream. I heard the car accelerate, and I saw it swerve onto the sidewalk and hit. I saw it hit 3 women. One woman in particular flew 10, 15 feet to the side onto the sidewalk. Afterwards, I was in shock and crossed the street. I wanted to know if they were alive, if they were okay.
And that PSU freshman said that one of the women was not moving at the time, and he heard a man who was next to her saying, "You're doing great. The ambulance is almost here."
So many people witnessed this. You can just imagine this was the heart of the school day. Thousands of students headed to class or leaving class at 10 o'clock in the morning. I want to go to K2's Nate Bynum now, standing by with more on the witnesses, and a lot of people out there saw this, Nate.
Yeah, Stephen, it's just now starting to look normal here at Southwest 5th and Harrison, where police just removed all that yellow and red police tape some 8 hours after that driver plowed into those girls on the sidewalk. Now, students understandably shaken up, and at least one is considering some changes after this violent incident on streets that are routinely packed with students.
Honestly, I don't know. Like, I'm going to question listening to headphones or putting headphones in my ear now when I'm walking around and just being even more aware. And like, I'm considering taking online classes next term, which I know sounds a little bit paranoid, but I can't stand this kind of risk. I think it's really alarming.
Now, students certainly going to be on edge for a while with so many questions still to be answered. But again, it does look like detectives are beginning to wrap up the investigation here in the streets. Traffic beginning to flow again here in downtown Portland. I'm Nate Bynum, K2 News.
Okay, Nate, thank you so much. You can imagine the tremendous impact this had on so many students who were here and those who weren't here. But because of the traumatic incident that did happen, Multnomah County's mental health call center is available for people who may need to talk about what they saw, what they heard, or what they now know that happened on their campus today with the hit and run this afternoon or this morning. It is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is the number to call if you feel like you need to speak with somebody. It's 503-988-4888, or you can call toll free, and that number is 800-716-9769.
Such a terribly painful day for so many in this community, particularly on this campus now. Since we've been down here, we've been talking to a whole lot of folks that just are stunned, cannot believe this happened in downtown Portland on their campus. So many more questions. Hopefully we'll get some answers in the days to come, but this has been a horrifying day for so many folks. We'll be keeping our eye on the victims, of course, who are at OHSU now. In the meantime, let's go back to the studio in Lincoln Graves. Lincoln?
Okay, Steve and Deb, thank you so much for the update.